Hello ladies and gentlemen, this video is using your calculator to find a linear model for a data set. So let's look first at how we can put our data set into the calculator. We have the Stat button here, and when we hit Stat, first thing you're going to see is Edit, and that's what I want to do, and it's going to take me to my list. I actually have several lists available to me right from the start, but because we are dealing with a data set, we really just need two lists, an X list and a Y list, our independent and our dependent. So I'm currently on list 1, and so I'm going to enter in a few values. You notice it's right here on the first line. So as I start typing, it'll start taking the numbers that I type in. And each time I hit enter, it moves down to the next line. Now, before I keep going, I am going to show you a little trick here. If you have data in your list already and you want to clear it out, you arrow up until the list itself is highlighted, and I'm not going to hit delete. If I hit delete, the entire list goes away and it's going to be, Mrs. Clark, come help me, I don't have a list 1 anymore. I don't want to hear that. So don't hit delete. Delete, bad. We want to clear our list. So I'm going to hit clear and enter, and now my list is clear and it's still there. So I can type in a new list without losing list 1 entirely. Don't hit delete. You're clearing your list, not deleting it. Alright, so again, I'm going to put some values in here. I'm not going to go for anything too crazy. Just a small little list. And once I'm done with my first list, so this will be my X list here, I'm going to use my arrow key to go over to the next one and enter in some values. Let's see. Just having a little fun with my numbers here. There we go. So the first thing I'll point out is notice that my lists are the same length. This is a data set, X and Y's. They have to be in pairs. So if one list is longer than the other, I've done something wrong. If I want to go up and delete something from my list, like that 0.1 doesn't belong there. So once I'm on it, I can just hit delete. What I meant to type in, second insert, was a 1. And there we go. I have replaced what I wanted in that list. So hopefully that makes sense what I just did. My lists are the same length. They're the values that I want. Now I want to come up with a linear equation that will fit this data. It may not fit it perfectly, but I want it to be as close as possible. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to my Stat button, and I'm going to come over to Calc. And notice that the fourth one down says LinReg, linear regression. I want a linear model, a linear regression model. So that's the one I want to go for. Notice also it says AX plus B. Does that remind you of anything like MX plus B? That's the one I want. I want a linear equation. So I'm going to type that in. So now, once I have that in, it's usually a good idea to tell the calculator which list to look at, and you list the X list first and then the Y list. So if I were going to do that, notice that above the 1 button is L1 and above the 2 button is L2. So I can use my second keys to hit L1, comma, L2, and I'm telling it now which list to look at. If I don't do that, it'll automatically look at list 1 and list 2. But if my data is in list 3 and list 4, I need to be able to tell it which list to look at. So I wanted to show you how to do that. Once I hit enter, I get this information here. So if I were to round my value for A, negative 1.08, and I would plug that in for A. My B, I'm going to round it to 9.19, and I would plug it in for B. And then I would have an equation in slope-intercept form. And again, it's an approximation for the data, and I'll probably need to write this down so I don't lose it somewhere. But you know what? There's some important information here that's missing. In class, we're going to talk about correlation coefficient. And I want to be able to see that on my calculator. So I'm going to show you how to get that to come up. Above the 0 is a button that says Catalog. So I'm going to go to Second, Catalog, and I'm going to scroll down to the D's. I can use my down arrow, but that's going to take a little while. Over here is the D and the alpha buttons, and if I just hit that, it's going to take me down to the D's, and that's where I want to be right now, because what I want to find, I'm going to down arrow from here, is Diagnostic On. Diagnostic On is the one I'm going to enter. Enter. Now it's done and it's turned my diagnostic on. So when I go back and I do my stat, calc, and again I'm going down to my linear regression, and it's going to automatically look at list 1 and list 2 if I don't enter it. Oh look, my A and B are the same as they were before, nothing's changed, but here's that R value, that correlation coefficient. According to this, it's negative 0.8857284716. And again, in class, we'll discuss more what that means, but I need that information, so I need that R value. If I don't have my diagnostic on, it won't show me that. So now I've got all this data that I could want, and again, negative 1.08 and 9.19 are my slope and my y-intercept respectively. So I'm going to go and put those into my y== menu. Negative 1.08 x plus 9.1, oops, I forgot already. I should have written it down. So I'm just going to hit second, quit, and go back to my screen. Negative 1.08, 9.19, that's what I want. So I'm coming back to my y== menu. I'm going to go over and finish entering my equation. Now, 2 decimal places is just what I happen to choose. It could depend on the values you're working with as to where you're going to want to round to. But I recommend at least 2 decimal places because that's going to give you as close to precision as you can get. Now, I'm going to go up here to window settings. My x's went from 0 to 8, so I'm going to leave it just 0 to 10 for my graphing window. And my y's, same idea, they only went so far. I don't need the negative numbers because I only want to graph what's within this window. And there's my line. And it is a decreasing line, but I knew that because my slope was negative. Now, I wonder how well this actually fits the data that I was looking at. I see the line, but I can't compare it to the data points as it is. But wait, I can. Above the y== menu is the stat plot. I'm going to hit second, stat plot, and I'm going to click on plot 1 here, and I'm going to turn it on. When I use my down arrow, I can pick the type of graph I want to do. At some point later in the course, we'll look at some of these other ones, but right now, I just want this first one. It's a scatter plot. Use my down arrow, tell it which list is my X list and which one's my Y list. For the marks, I always go with the larger mark here, but that's because I'm old and I need to see things a little bit bigger. You can change it using your left and right arrow keys to one of the other markers if you choose. I'm going to leave it on the big square because that'll make it easier for me to see. So now when I hit graph, there's my data points, there's my line. Not too bad. My data point's a little scattered, but the line fits it pretty well. Looks like it's going right through the middle of everything. So I guess the calculator knows what it's doing. Somebody programmed it really well. So those are the basics of fitting a linear model to your data set. So again, it starts with stat edit and putting your data set in. Adjust your window accordingly. Make sure that you have your stat calc. You're doing linear regression. It's the 4th one down. Tell it what list to look at if it's not list 1 and list 2. If you want to compare it to the actual points, you hit stat plot and turn it on. And once you've done all that, you should have a nice graph to look at. Once you're on here too, you can use your trace function Right now, it's telling me plot 1 is what it's looking at. So as I hit my left and right arrow keys, it's going to take me around those dots and tell me what those different dots are. If I use my up arrow key, it's going to take me into the y equals menu, and I'm going to be along that line. So I can play around with that if I need to. But ladies and gentlemen, them's the basics. All right, we'll see you next lesson.